that there are some folks still hanging out with us. I'm excited that we're all sort of here. Not we're all sort of, we are here. That we're gathered here in Mokinstis, just right by the confluence, which is a few blocks away. So if you are not from Calgary, I kind of encourage you to head down to the river. It's a nice way to take a break from the craziness that sometimes is conferences. So I would kind of encourage you to just head to the river, take some time there. Always good for the soul. And I'm excited that I'm here with two of my pals from Edmonton. I'm going to let you both sort of introduce yourself and kind of let everybody know how you got started in management and who you currently manage.
Okay, I'll start.
Yeah.
My name is Rebecca. Come in.
Oh, it's locked.
They're locked.
That's it. There we go.
Lock them out. So my name is Rebecca Windjack. I work for a company based out of Winnipeg called Birthday Cake Records, also a management and publishing company. I am based in Edmonton. I've lived in Edmonton for just over 3 years. And I currently manage an artist by the name of Leith Ross. They're my only client at the moment, which is enough for me also at the moment. So the quick journey of my career. I grew up in Saskatchewan. I worked at, I kind of moved through a couple of different creative industries, worked in radio and film before I landed in music. I worked for SAS Music, which is our parallel to Alberta Music, where I got to learn a ton of stuff and meet a bunch of people, and eventually went to Germany and worked for an independent record label over there just to learn some stuff and meet more people. And then I came back after my visa was expired and started in management. So I started working in Toronto with a company who was managing Serena Ryder and Dear Rouge. So I worked with those clients for almost 2 years doing day-to-day management in different capacities. And then I was sought out by the Sheepdogs, who are a fellow Saskatchewan creative industry member, and they were looking to part ways with their management and start a new journey and asked me to join them. So I worked directly with the Sheepdogs for almost 2 years as well, up until the pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit, I decided to reassess and signed Leith and another artist, Maureen, who some of you might know. He's from Calgary, or from Edmonton, between Calgary and Edmonton. And so I don't work with him on the management side anymore. We work together still in a label capacity through Birthday Cake. And that's me to present day.
I love that. Your story is way cooler than mine. Like infinitely cooler. My name's Sean. I own a company called Halftime Management. I'm an artist manager, and I manage 2 artists currently on my roster. One from Calgary. His name's Kuzi C. And the other one is an artist out of Nanaimo named Raymond Salgado. So I've been in Edmonton for, I guess, most of my life now. I came from the sort of theater world. I was at improv for a lot of years, kind of a really crappy musician as well. Just always kind of tinkered around and spent more money along McQuaid than I ever recorded songs. So just jumped into music, kind of a happenstance. I actually went to a wedding actually in Saskatchewan, and a cousin of mine was a country music manager. So he managed Brett Kissel for, 17 years or something like that. He says to me at a wedding, he says, "Sean, I think you could be one of the biggest agents in the world." And I said, "Louis, I have no idea what that means, but I'll take you up on that at some point." And so I gave him a call about 6 months later and said, "How do you start this industry?" And he said, "Find an artist and manage them or do some stuff with them." So fast forward 6 years later, I guess, sitting here and moving to Toronto next week, which is going to be crazy, and trying to make a bit of a push here. I'm moving to Toronto so that you guys don't have to. That's the goal for my folks in Alberta, but super excited to be here. So thanks so much.
I'm excited that you both said yes when I kind of bullied you to be here. And normally in my notes, I actually write down to introduce myself, and I didn't this time, and I didn't introduce myself. I'm Jess, pronouns she, her. My management company is called Campfire Management. I'd been working at Alberta Music, which is how I know both of these fine folks, which sort of, while I was there, started managing artists off the side of my desk. And now that's sort of turned into my full-time gig. I'm currently managing Robert Adam and Julia Voss. They're both country artists, and I love them both very dearly, but I also have nicknames for them when they annoy me. And so sort of, I guess how that all kind of came afoot. I started working with Julia 3 years ago. We were both at the CCMAs, kind of connected, took over the conference together in a bit of a way. And then at the end of the conference, it led to a conversation of what does this look like with you managing me moving forward. Here we are 3 years later, and then working with Robert. I'd known Robert through a program at Alberta Music called Project Wild. And Robert approached me in March to kind of tell me that he'd come into a significant amount of funding to record their next record that they're looking to release later in 2025. So it was sort of a friendship relationship that we already had. I was at most of their shows in the front row singing along as it was. And so it was sort of an easier transition towards management. And so sort of why I share that story is I think that it's important to talk about how you got started with the artists that you're managing, and kind of maybe that will lend to some examples of what that might look like for you if you're looking for a manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Everyone I've ever worked with, I've met just like doing stuff like this, truthfully, which I think is really cool and special about our community, especially in Western Canada, but in Canada as a whole. So I met Leith when I was working with the Sheepdogs, and at that time I didn't have capacity to take on another client. They were very full on for me. And Leith was a student at Humber. I was living in Toronto at the time, and they were doing their jazz voice degree, and they were rehearsing for a show with my roommate, who is an awesome guitarist, and is, we don't live together anymore. And I just heard their voice in my living room, and I was like, what? And it was just so special, but I wasn't thinking at all like, oh my God, I want to manage this person. I was just like, this is a really, really special person. I don't know anything about them. I don't know what's going to happen, but this is just really sounding very cool and special. And so I was excited to just like support them as a fan. Similarly, like, stayed kind of in touch-ish, like just followed along their journey, and they released their EP Motherwell, which was a live off the floor final project from their Humber degree. And Birthday Cake put it out. So backstory quickly on Birthday Cake is it's founded by the brothers Landreth, who are a Winnipeg band, and their manager Stu Anderson. So that's who I work with, kind of adjacent to. And Joey Landreth was also living in Toronto at the time and mentoring Leith on guitar. So that's how they met to put Leith's album out. I stage managed Joey at Dauphin Country Fest years ago. So I knew them from way back when in my festival days. And then they offered me a job. And then they were like, we also think that you are very obviously the perfect manager for Leith. And we've been working together for 4 years.
That's amazing. Yeah. From living room singing to Brothers Landreth being like, hey.
Yeah, I know. It's been a really fun journey.
I love that. My very first artist I ever found, because I came from the theater world. I remember my cousin was managing him. His name was Wally up in Edmonton. And coming from a theater background, I remember going to some shows and I'm like, ooh, I can add immediate value to this. Like just like a performances, like, and turning your body towards the audience and trying to build a show out of that. So kind of jumped in, and we were at a show, and I tapped my cousin Nick on the shoulder and I said, I want in. and then that was it. And then fast forward with Kuzi about a year later, we actually heard him singing Happy Birthday. So it was just literally at a family event singing Happy Birthday. His girlfriend is dating my other cousin's cousin. So there's a family tree somewhere. There's a lot of cousins involved. Yeah, we keep it in the family a lot. And my cousin Nick said to Kuzi, holy crap, like you can sing. So did you want to do a show maybe? And started from there, practiced and learned a bunch. And then with Raymond, it was just the same thing as everybody else on Instagram. He's got a really big following on Instagram and TikTok. And I was just another guy who reached out and said, hey, if you're ever heading down to Calgary, I've got a sweet deal on hotels. There's a really wicked hotel here that offers great artist rates. If you ever want to come through, let me know. Started that there. And then a couple of years later, followed up again, said, hey, how's your head and your heart? Because you've been singing 5 really sad cover songs in a row. And he said, I'm not good. And he had just fired his manager. Had the whole world throwing a bunch of stuff at him. So he just jumped in there and said, let me help you navigate, or at least be somebody in between the artist and the person who's trying to meet with you. So they sort of like let me jump in there just to make sure no one's taking advantage of you, and kind of started from that on a very much non sort of businessy, just an internet friend guy that I was like, this guy's in trouble, I think, and I think I can help him out. So that's how I started.
This is great, because my advice always to musicians for seeking management is that your manager's already around. You just don't know it yet. And I think that is the moral of like all 3 of our stories, is that person's already around. They're at your shows, they're in your circle, but they just haven't taken that role on yet. And so so obviously we have all also been at a bunch of conferences, often together. And in conferences such as SoundOff, there are people who are seeking management. So what's your advice for artists that are here with us this weekend or attending the conference? They might be showcasing, they might not be. What's your advice for them if they're seeking a manager sort of out of this weekend?
Yeah.
Felt very strongly about that.
Yeah.
I've got this one.
No, because it's a weird thing. Because like there's millions of different ways to do it. Like you said, I'm a manager, but like there's maybe another manager in this room that doesn't know that they're a manager yet, but wants to be a manager and wants to kind of figure that out. So I would say, like, number one, the one thing that you can do, if you do one thing, is just show up and be present and come to the things and say hello. It's not like the most streamed artist gets the manager, or like, oh, the one with the craziest voice like just gets that in there. It doesn't really have to do with that necessarily. I mean, definitely good tunes makes a difference. I would also find a manager maybe that also likes your music, because they'll be listening to a lot of it. So if you just don't fundamentally like, the Swedish death metal, then just maybe try to find someone who really does, to kind of work that and build that relationship. But number one is showing up. And having tried stuff, I would say, like, I want to know that you've tried to get a grant before, that you've maybe filled it out and that you just didn't get it or whatever, like those kinds of things. I want to know that that's part of the thing that I want to know. You're showing up and you're trying.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Different stories. Yeah. I would say that I do everything except for the reason, the best part about mine and Kuzi's relationship is that I'm a terrible R&B singer. So he just handles everything that's kind of on the stage and on the Instagram stuff. And I kind of try to do everything on the back end, but I think people split that up differently as it gets going.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, manager looks so different for every artist, and depending on what your needs are and where you're at in your career, management for in the early stages is often just like putting things in place, getting systems in place, getting people in place, whether that's like official team members, agents, a label, a publishing company, or whether it's like seeking third-party support to help you with whatever you're doing. They are probably going to assist you with everything that you want creatively, except for going on the stage, as Sean said. But like a lot of managers are also really creative people coming from creative backgrounds. So I don't think like ruling out that your manager can be a creative support is something you need to do. But yeah, I often just say like, the one thing that I don't do is I don't book shows. I'm not a booking agent, and I actually put this in my contract. But outside of that, and so I will book shows. It's not that I like refuse to do it, but it's sort of like setting an expectation for what I do in a formal working relationship. So my job as a manager is actually not to give you work. It's to manage the work, or to help develop you to a place where there is work and income. So I don't know if that like answers your question. I also think it's really important that you find a manager that's willing to be adaptable to you and what you need. And the style of management that I bring to different clients has been very, very different in a lot of ways for every client I've ever worked with. But then, I also am who I am. I have my morals, I have my values, and I also bring that. So that's that's kind of what we do. In a nutshell, I think there's so many other points of value that managers can bring to an artist's career. But that's kind of the gist of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if you're looking to sort of add a manager to a team, you're looking for a specific person to take on specific tasks. So everybody kind of comes from management in a different way. Like Sean kind of comes to management through sales, something he's really good at. Becca comes to management through tour management and her time at Sask Music. I come to it from a live side, my time at Alberta Music. But Nick Davies, who's also here this weekend, artists he manages, he comes at it as a producer. So it's just sort of knowing what areas of the business you want help with. If you're really good at, maybe you feel really strongly in the studio, maybe you're also a producer and you don't want somebody's input on that, then yeah, maybe you're looking for somebody in sales or in live. Whereas if your strength is kind of in live and managing the band and getting everybody to the show, then maybe you are looking for somebody who has strengths in a different sector.
You end up kind of becoming everything. I'm also a amateur new graphic designer as of Canva recently for tour posters and stuff like that too. So I figured that out. I'm a really cheap psychologist. Really cheap.
A lot of emotional management.
Yeah.
A lot of emotional.
Lots, yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say too, on a small level, depending on what your manager brings to the table or what you guys kind of have figured out too, you also have to pick somebody or got to work with somebody that you're comfortable sharing a hotel room with and things like that, or sitting and eating 12 meals in a row with over 4 days or 5 days, or trusting that someone's going to watch out for you. You have to have those types of things. You have to move and groove quite a bit. And whether you're stranded in the hotel, everywhere I seem to go, I get stranded somehow. It's a bit of a theme going on, but yeah, it's you'll have to do those with the people around you. So they have to be close people to you. I would suggest, or people that you would like to eventually become close with, maybe that you enjoy at least as a human being.
Yeah, I was in the audience for a panel that Rebecca was a part of this past weekend. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting that you and Omar talked about is that your artist is somebody that you talk to probably more than your partner, or whoever the next closest person is in your life. You're kind of always in communication with them as the artist. When something goes wrong, you have to feel okay calling me to tell me that it went wrong for us to problem solve it together. If you're trying to hide things from me, it's going to be not good.
Yeah. Mom and dad.
No. Yeah. So it's kind of, it really, I don't know. We do everything except book shows. I don't like booking shows either.
See, I love it. I love that part of it. Just nothing more I love than that. But that's a whole other side of it too. That, that's the part that literally had to survive as when I started off, because I had literally nothing else. It was like Michael Scott when he declares bankruptcy and he walks out of the office and he goes, "I declare bankruptcy," and that's the things he did. That was me with management and artists. I'm a manager one of these days, and then that's what it happened. So
yeah.
do it all.
Helpful in any way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, we're answering a question. I forgot.
Okay. Yeah.
Their manager.
Yeah.
And I think something we've also taught, I'm just going to like jump in.
Yeah,
Love
but, something, because I've been doing management panels for the last 2 weeks. So I'm in the zone. But something that we've been talking about is like not rushing into a relationship. And yeah, just like, I think back to Jess's question about how you find a manager out of a weekend like this, like this is a really special conference in the sense that it's quite small, it's quite curated. People are very accessible. You're not, I don't think anybody has to compete in terms of showcases. Like there's no overlap. There's lots of space for everybody. So it's a really great conference in that sense because you're actually more likely to come away with like real types of relationships. I don't know that it's like fair to expect that you're going to come away with some type of signing or contract. It usually takes quite a bit of time to build into these relationships because they are very intimate. They are very specific. And I think on both sides, like artist and manager, you want to take time to make sure that you are going to fit well, that this is going to be good, because it's also really like it hurts to break up. It's hard. And it's hard to, we don't do this for the fun of it. We're passionate people. We care about you as human beings and as artists and creators, and believe in what you're doing and what you're giving to the world. And so it's like, yeah, to give all of that for me anyways, like to give all of that emotion and that care and compassion into a project, just like it makes it really, really important that I take some time and a lot of consideration into getting into any type of working relationship with an artist.
And figure what the goals are. Like as an artist, like it's really great to come to somebody with some goals, because even if I'm not able to manage you, or Rebecca's not able to manage, or Jess or something like that, like I take calls all the time. Like even from the CCMAs, like I showed up there, an artist named Jordan Pollard came up to me. She was like, I was chatting with Bart McKay in Saskatchewan about you, and now you're here. It's like, cool, hello. I'm not taking up any new clients, but she got on a call with me 2 weeks after. We chatted for a couple hours about her career, kind of what she wanted to do. And then she played at Cowboys last night. So I went to go check her out. It's kind of like that all came back from with a few goals. She approached and said, hey, what's up? And like, I don't know about you guys. I'm so far from being rich and from this industry. So like I have so much passion to give and help. And if I can help, I will almost always. I can't think of a reason why I wouldn't. It's just like doing the work for you might, I need you to do that part of it, but I can definitely help. But yeah, like little questions. And if you had some goals or said, hey, Sean, like I just want to figure out how to get a hold of this person here, I'll help you do that. Those are like fun little journeys and like treasure hunts for me, like trying to get a hold of somebody or trying to figure out who they are. So that helps a lot too.
Yeah, I think it's important to sort of bring a project that you're working on. I had a meeting with an artist and they were like, I'm feeling stuck. I don't really feel like a lot is happening right now. And I was like, that's not the time to bring on a manager. That's kind of something you want to be looking at too, is like when you're bringing on a manager, there should be more than you're able to handle on your own. Because now you're paying that person a percentage of all of the money you bring in. So there has to be money to bring that person on board, which I think is kind of a key part of it to think about. Circling all the way back, we're kind of talking about like how often we're in communication with our artists. What does that communication look like? Is it scheduled? Is it at midnight? What does that look like for you guys? Am I just the only one with bad boundaries on this panel?
Well, I mean, I've been talking about boundaries a lot also lately, and this is something that like the further along I think any human being gets in their life, hopefully the better they get at setting and upholding boundaries and respecting other people's boundaries. And this is so important in working relationships, in all relationships, but we're talking about working relationships. And so I think being very clear about your boundaries and setting a precedence is really important, because once a precedence is set, it's kind of too far gone. So that said, would love to have set better boundaries, but I'm pretty much at my clients' full access whenever they need something from me. We have a really great understanding and relationship where if they need some time, they've just gotten home from traveling, I know that they're probably not going to want to talk about anything the day after they've flown. So I'm going to give them a day or whatever. And vice versa. They respect that as much as possible. I am working a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 schedule, unless they're on the road, in which case I'm 24/7, but I'm pretty much a 24/7, admittedly, very honestly. And that's also why I only have one client right now, because it just crosses into your personal life so much. It seeps even when you try to stop it from seeping. It's so intimate. Really, truly, these relationships can be very intense. So I am talking to Leith often, but I also try to have a standing weekly meeting with them. And I'm also very aware and accepting that they don't do emails. So I text them. So I adapt to what works well for them. Other clients are very email heavy. So it just depends, but that's me.
Yeah. Those boundaries are great until you're dealing with the 5 p.m. in Toronto when you live in Edmonton is different than London, England, and all the different time zones. They get a bit of a pain in the butt. But yeah, I'm the same way. I'm kind of at 24 hours. If I didn't answer, it felt like I was sleeping. But I guess I can't control that. So, but I'm talking to my artists hourly, minutely, daily sometimes, depending on what's going on. They're also my friends too. Kuzi's a good buddy of mine. And so we chat just about life or music or whatever that looks like all the time. But we'll have a group chat of the business, and then there's the personal chat. And then we'll have a kind of anything that needs to go in a calendar gets forwarded via email. Kuzi puts that in the joint calendar. So that's the important stuff. That's read this. The other stuff's kind of candor. And then there's the Instagram chats as well too. So kind of between all of that world, it's pretty often for me, but I kind of like it that way. So
yeah. Okay, well, I'm glad we're all bad at boundaries. Because I find when I have meetings with my artists, either they or myself will come with a agenda and be here's the 4 things that we actually need to accomplish in the next hour. Because we are friends and we'll just gossip for an hour and no work will be done. So we really need to have sort of those structures in place to keep us focused. Or maybe it even looks like I'm lucky enough to live in the same city as Robert. So Robert and I will meet up and actually work together for the afternoon, whether that's me reminding them that their website bio is out of date and needs to be updated. And I'm just sort of off to the side working on something completely different. But we kind of have those working hours together. When Julia's in town, we'll have those working hours together. Because I think it's they're just there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Zenit.
How often do you try to put in specifically a lot of working hours? Right? Because it sounds like although you are available, how much time do you actually delegate to sitting down and being these are the points we need to deal with right now?
With the client?
Yes.
I mean, I'm on my end, I'm doing it every day, just because I'm in a busy, we're ramping up. They're finishing a recording right now. So it's pretty busy. It depends on the season, but for me, it's at least, I don't know, a couple hours a day right now. And then not on the weekend so much. But and then when it's we're on cycle, then we have okay, here's our management, whatever list chat through meeting, priority setting meeting. It happens on Mondays, and then we set every Friday or every other Friday is like a press day. So the press team just knows that like, this is your day when you're on, you're working, you're available for press, and we're going to book stuff. And then you're just going to show up. So that's kind of how I do it, or like block it out to be like, okay, yeah, you're doing this on this day and whatever. Yeah. But it just depends.
Money does I don't know.
So it's between 15 and 20%. I do 15. And I mean, doing the math, and I'm not good at math, but like if you take, let's say a client is making $1 million a year, which is a lot of money, but at 15%, that's $150,000 divided between myself, and I have 2 support staff, to pay salaries and to pay all of the travel, to cover costs of things like, we use Asana for project management. And so there's all that. So like when you break it all down, it's actually really, really hard for one artist to make enough money to support a manager, which is why most managers have multiple clients, and will at some point, even if you go through phases, but like, it's a lot of pressure to put onto one artist to be like, okay, you need to pay my salary and I like to live nice. So, but that's kind of that is the breakdown for me anyways, is it's 15% of everything. And then there's certain costs that I also back out of my contract, certain things that I back out. Yeah. So that like, if you are losing money on tour, for example, I'm not going to commission on it. But that's not everybody.
Totally. Yeah.
What are some goals to help me make more money and help them get paid?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, I feel like I'm
party on. You're catching a wave right now.
You got
it.
I'm talking a lot. I mean, so this is like such an important piece also, because while I said at the beginning, like, no, I'm not a booking agent, and it's technically not the manager's job to be creating work for you. Of course, we want you to have opportunities. We want you to be busy. We want you to be making money so that we are making money and everybody's making money and the projects can keep going. Yeah, and I just lost my thought. Man, I was on a wave.
No.
Do you repeat that question?
Just crashed.
Sorry.
What goals?
Oh, yeah. Setting goals. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. So I think like based on like sort of having self-awareness of where you're at, you and your manager, and being realistic in that, and then being able to dream from there, and being able to have vision from there together, and then reverse engineer that vision so that you know what steps you need to take. So if your vision is to be a touring artist, and that's something that's really important to you sooner than later, then absolutely your manager's like soonest priority should be building relationships with agents, researching agents, seeing who makes sense for you, researching support tours, opportunities that maybe aren't going to be an official agency relationship, but that might kind of usher you in that direction. So definitely. And that's such an important piece that I think is overlooked a lot of the time, and especially in the first relationships with managers, that a lot of artists will get into these relationships and they go, amazing, I have a manager. My work is done. They're going to figure it all out. And that doesn't happen, because it's your career and we need to know what you want to do. So definitely like finding an agent is something that you could be like, hey, this is what I want to focus on. This is your job. This is our job together in this partnership. This is a goal. I want to have a booking agent in the next 18 months. Let's see what we can do. And that's like, but also being able to come to your manager and give them that direction, that guidance, and have these conversations about your expectations is so important and so healthy. And that's like truly, I think, what's going to lead you into a fruitful, sustainable relationship with a manager.
I think it's also important for your manager to be like, gear down there, big rig. We're not world touring it just yet. Just there's a few things that we got to work on first. So I think it's just like incremental steps. Is if you came to me and said, I want to play in outside of my home province for one show, my goal is to play one show outside of home province. The other one would be maybe to like inside the same province, just different city and things like that. Like those would be kind of goals you can sort of check out that we kind of figure out how to make that work. Maybe go festival route. Maybe it's a conference route that we can do, maybe a quick little showcase at. So there's no money being involved, but it's a good goal checking thing that might help you bring back some content to your home city and kind of take advantage of all that too. So there's just different ways to kind of slice it up, and almost none of them involve a lot of money going to the artist. It's usually at that stage is trying to figure out how to make it work with what you got. And oftentimes too, I mean, you look at a booking agent, we talk about money too. It's important. I hear a lot of people at conferences say, if I just had an agent, like, oh, my show's so good. If I just had an agent, it'd be awesome. Well, an agent makes 10%. That's typically what they do. So if you're, doing $15,000 worth of shows a year, kind of little, maybe a $1,500 show here, a $2,000 show here, a $500 show here. I mean, that's like $1,500 for a booking agent, before taxes, so that it's kind of like, okay, how much effort do they have to put in to be able to get you these things, to be able to get the money? And that's the reality of a booking agent's life. Like they've chosen the eat what you kill only to sit there. So like if you don't have that stuff ready to go for them, it's probably not going to work out super great. And I once heard a thing saying if you're time for an agent, they will find you instead of finding them. It's usually I want more shows, I want more money, let's go find an agent. But figuring out what that might look like for the first little bit, it's important to check out. Because they make 10%. That's it. Someone with making money.
You're talking about that infrastructure, those pieces that could live on your team, so between your booking agent and manager, potentially distribution, PR, do you have an order in which event?
I think it kind of comes down to, like I was saying earlier, like what you excel at, what, like as a manager, what it is that like I have to bring to the table. So like if I have a lot of contacts in radio, probably not going to go hire a radio tracker. I think it also comes down, I just like had this call yesterday. And it kind of comes down to like what the goals are. So like Robert and I had a chat yesterday that we're releasing 5 singles next year. And so we're trying to figure out what does that look like for each single, because we don't have the money to hire a radio tracker for each single or a publicist. And so it really depends on the project and kind of what your goal is for it. Our goal is to be on the Polaris Music Prize. So we're chatting with PR, we're chatting with journalists, because they're the ones that are going to get you on the Polaris Music Prize. So it's this that's kind of why it comes down to like your goal is to kind of figure out who it is you are going to add to the team.
Mm-hmm. I'd say it's really important too to check out kind of what team that you can be before you start to add your team. Like I think the sort of self-managed artist. I mean, everyone in this room here can get a distribution deal with like CD Baby or DistroKid. Like you pay a fee and you get your stuff out there. Your PR can come from things like Submit Hub, where you might put $10, $15 or $50 or $20 for a submission playlist. So that's your PR company. Your record label might be you in your house with the recording studio that you rented a mic from Long McQuaid. So if you're doing those things already, I think those are all things that then the manager can say, okay, you actually do really well at these 2 things here, but like, man, we need to find you a photographer, like we really just like that. This ain't working anymore, like you can't be doing that. So that might be somewhere we can jump in quick. And it's like, well, I don't have money for that. It's like, well, my friend, Bill owns the DSLR camera and he's trying to be a photographer. So maybe we can get Bill to come here and check that out. I use that stuff all of the time and try to find other artists that are also trying to navigate their own world of art and incorporate them, ask them questions. If you have a friend who's an amazing artist or painter, visual artist, say, man, like, I got this tour poster. I'm just trying to figure out how to do this show. Give it to them, see if maybe pay them $20 or $50 or, quarter pounder goes a long way these days if you really have to, especially with something cool. So try to figure what that looks like as well, what you can do for yourself in your own ecosystem. Goes a long way.
Rebecca, thoughts on adding a team member?
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's like what you need and also who's there sometimes. Sometimes it's like you might really want a manager, but the agent is there and ready to rock. So like, I think it's also about, and not to say like just work with anybody that's willing to work with you. Certainly like vet your people, take your time, be conscious and thoughtful about these things. But yeah, sometimes it's also about like what role people are able to step into and that like they're showing up and they're excited. So if someone can take something off your plate that's going to be helpful and they're excited about your project and they want to work with you, then like that's a really great place to start. And I wouldn't push those people away immediately. At least like, explore that. But the industry also goes through seasons in like typically who's kind of on the front lines of like A&Ring, developing, signing, like seeking out new music, finger on the pulse of like what's creatively interesting and cool. And for a long time, agents were those people because it was such a live industry. And so it's just such a live world. And the pandemic has really, really shifted that in such a huge way that agents are still catching up, really trying to like get their feet back on the ground from their businesses being destroyed
due to unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like these things that cause these crazy shifts. But now there's actually true A&R happening at labels again, which is something that wasn't happening for a long time. But labels are going, whoa, Gen Zs actually are paying attention and they know how to use the internet, and that's cool. And we're going to hire these people to A&R for us. And so this is happening again, where there are people that are like on the front lines, strictly like out. I mean, they're crunching numbers, but they're also out there like looking for cool art. So right now it's kind of like a label season, publisher season. If you're like a really great songwriter, it just kind of depends on right place, right time, who's around.
And right Instagram numbers, right? Got to have 12 million for us to do anything, right? 57 million.
Let's see more. Focus on your Spotify numbers, if anything. But yeah.
Where is that? Or would it be just from like you're paying up, you know you're out of manager? You're still working.
Yeah.
I was wondering where, like, yeah, I mean, typically it's off the top lines, the gross. So, I also know very few managers as well that are also making money that don't lose money on this stuff as well. So it's kind of this weird kind of like co-bond of no one's making money, but yeah, it's off the top typically. So my role as a manager too, if you're typically getting maybe $1,000 a show, and I can get in there and help negotiate that up to $1,500 a show or $2,000 a show, I've just paid for myself out of there too. So I can hopefully level that up a little bit for that show and bring you guys a little bit more money. Oh yeah. I guess at the start I kind of do both, right? I don't know, maybe well, I guess it would come from the shows or like, but it's mostly live. Streams of merch. Yep. There's some cash in there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in the early days, it's like from every corner of the earth, wherever you can find money, right? So I think like radio can help. If you have any traction at radio, then those royalties are really helpful. Sirius XM It's hugely helpful, like buy a house helpful. So if you get added to XM radio, and this is a sidebar on like birthday cake deals specifically, but birthday cake does not dip into artists' XM royalties. Most labels do. Which is, we can talk about it later if you want.
I do want to talk about that later.
Yeah, me too.
It is actually like life-changing. It's a life-changing clause in contracts for artists, because if you get added to Sirius XM and you get that money coming to you, then it's buy a house money. If your label is taking it, which 99.9% of all labels in the world do, and this is just standard, then you don't buy it.
So are you talking it's out of the label side of the deal, or out of the out of everything?
Artists. It's neighboring royalties. Yeah, neighboring rights. Exactly, yeah. Or at least a percentage of the artist share. Like they would take, let's say you're on a profit share deal, then they would take their whatever their split is of the profit share of your artist's royalties, plus the rights holder royalty.
Because Sirius, I think, is what, like $51 a spin or something like that, or $47 a spin or something?
Yeah, I mean, it changes if you get added.
Yeah. But I know like
the gang's itching.
Emerging artists.
Chime in from the label side.
Yeah, let's go. Love it.
Okay. Yeah.
How do you guys deal with the perception of a band who has just come on board and you're collecting your percentage from them for the money that they made on the board? Do you do anything to pre-counter the perception that they just went on this long tour, did all the driving, did all the hauling, did all the playing, did all the work, and you sat at your desk doing just making phone calls and working on the computer, yet somehow they're paying you all this money for one tour?
They just strummed a little guitar and got the money. So you just took your little stick and hit your little drum, and we all did. Yeah.
I mean, that's real. And it is real. It is real. Like there are absolutely so many days where I'm like, am I earning my percentage? And the other thing is that like, I'm so cautious about getting into a management relationship, because I never, ever want to pin you financially. And this is exactly what we're talking about, where like, if you're on a roll and you've got stuff going on and like we break down that 15% and that's like going to actually mean you can't afford your mortgage or you can't afford your childcare, you can't I will not manage you. I will help you. I'll be here to support you. I'll be your fan. But like, the idea of taking up 15% when that 15% needs to go to your livelihood is really hard. So, and that's something that you should think about also, of like, if you are giving up 15%, it really needs to be worth it. So I would hope that you're not having that sentiment in the first place. But the way that I mitigate that is by, I do a budget for absolutely everything. So if anybody wants my client to step out the door, I have a budget and I talk to my client about it through the budget as realistically as possible, so that I can go, all right, buddy, you're going on tour. You wanted to do this and you're going to come back 50 grand in the hole because we're doing it this way. And you wanted a bus and you wanted a tour manager and you wanted to spend the extra money on the fancy merch and whatever. So like, these are decisions that you've made and this is how it all lays out. So like, having the discussion before they leave is one of the most important things I can ever do as a manager, because exactly like you said, when you go out on the road and you don't have this foresight and nobody sat you down and said, okay, you're going to go and do this thing, but this is how much money you're going to make or lose. And this is sort of like the profit margin. This is the variables, whatever. And to be able to like actually understand and accept that, then like you shouldn't be working with that person and you probably shouldn't be going on tour, because that can also end your career. One bad tour can really
I think there's a lot of moments like that where I'm like, oh, okay, did I really earn like my 15% on this? And then we were working on a budget the other day, and the artist was like so jazzed. They were like, I did the budget. It's waiting for you. If you can look through it, like, I've done it, Jess. So I go through and I look at the budget, and in the cells that were supposed to have all the budget lines, it just said, fuck me. And I was like, oh, I'm valuable because they couldn't figure it out.
I was about to say, unless you're fired for doing a budget.
They did it.
They did.
They just wrote me a
Okay, that's
sneaky
a trick.
message inside. So I think that like they should be seeing that value that you're bringing. And if not, it's kind of a bigger conversation because there's a lot of times where you will bend. Like Julia sang the anthem at the Stampeders for $150. And I was like, am I really going to get you to send me $20 or are you going to buy me a hot dog and a beer when you take me to the football game?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's a lot of questions like that, right? That you're kind of always having a conversation about. Hot dogs aren't going to pay my mortgage, but at the same time, like there's always kind of give and take. There's always sort of the next big thing.
Like that's
that
a
you're
good
working on.
opportunity for Julia
Totally.
to take. So it makes sense. And it's like, yeah, exactly. I think we can all kind of do that and will have that flex. If there's a great opportunity and it isn't going to pay a ton of money, but it's going to it's an adjacent step or it's going to be a thing in the next thing that you want to achieve, then like, I feel like it's important to have a team that is at least willing to have a conversation around these things. Like Jess said, we can't get paid in beer and hot dogs forever, but also having a manager that understands that and that isn't going to nickel and dime you is like pretty valuable because this is a business and there are people and management and companies who operate like that out of necessity. They have to do it. So there's value even just in having someone who is flexible and willing to do that.
We've had to go back and forth a lot on very emerging artists. Like I've been with Kuzi, like I said, since Happy Birthday. So like we both of us knew nothing. We had no idea what was going on. So we kind of made a thing where really, unless he was making $1,000 or more on a gross day, we weren't really going to take anything from that because if we took, we charge 20%. So if we took $200 from that and that stopped him from being able to do a music video the next week or a photo shoot or stopped him from being able to get gas to be able to drive to Edmonton for the next show, then there was really no point. It seemed like it was just hurting something that needed to be watered and cared for and fostered. So we had a kind of an internal thing like that. But I was also able to resource share a lot. So with my day job, and a lot of managers have a lot of clients, a lot of managers also have a lot of jobs to be able to kind of make it work. So I was able to get like my day job, which looks after the cannabis industry, and on a national level. So let's just say I booked a Kuzi show out in Vancouver. I would get my day job to fly me out to Vancouver for meetings, and then Kuzi would stay at the hotel there. So I'm kind of like contributing in ways that we all could to make it work. And then I'm in the cannabis industry, so I just trade weed for everything, as much as people want. It works really well.
With 4 minutes,
Oh yeah.
do you have more questions? Something you wanted to hear about that we didn't cover, Liam?
Was just one around finances, kind of like cash flow and like separation of expenses between different parties. This is something that's like a real shit I struggle with. What do I expect you to pay? And we're writing a grant and that actually comes back much later. So there's like, I find the educational piece of this is really important. Like, well, yeah, you need to buy these flights now and maybe like factor it in later. But also like what do I realize buy this and have this on my commission later. How you guys manage one of these expectations for 2
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Grant day is a good day for managers. Is that?
Okay. Well, this is in my contract. Is that if you like want me to be somewhere, you have to pay for me to be there. So you might not be like paying me a rate to be there, but like you want me to come to Nashville with you on that trip, you're paying for me to go to Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I don't know, that's kind of my hard line. And I'm like, look, I will share a bed with you at Motel 6. I will sleep on your mom's couch when you play a show in Edmonton. That's fine. But like, you have to figure that out if you want me there. So I don't. I don't. As my answer.
Yeah. That's one of those boundary things. I think it's hard not to, but I do. It's really hard not to when you're like that exact situation. Like there's a cool opportunity and we need to book flights because they're going to go up. So this is only going to get more expensive. And we need to start getting this booked so that we can communicate to people and yada, yada. But client works at Starbucks and doesn't have any money in their pocket and is depending on their grant to make this thing happen. I definitely have. I've fronted money. I've paid for flights. I've paid for hotel rooms. I've done this and put it onto the management commissions. I just would caution of like where you're at on that currently before you add things to it that you like beyond your commissions, what you're owed, like hard costs. Because you can't get blood from a stone. And it is just like, I mean, without saying too much, I'm kind of in a situation like this right now where, you know, you get in so deep that it's like, you know, somebody is never going to be able to pay you back. And yet we've done all this stuff and like, it's a lot of money and you do all the work and stuff. So I would just say like, for you as the manager, just like be cautious because most managers that I've talked to about this thing don't end up getting paid back usually. So it is your investment as the manager. I think it's admirable for sure. And I do it, but I like every time these scenarios come up, I have to personally face myself and go, can I afford this loss if I don't get paid back or if I don't get paid back in even 5 years from now? Can I stomach this? And you might be able to, you might be in a financial position. And this is a value that a lot of managers can bring if they have bigger clients that are more established and stuff, that they might be able to bring investment to your project along with the service of a manager. But yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, well, it happens to me all the time. The old WestJet credit card, I got a new one this summertime and she's beat up. It is, we had a trip to LA this summer and we applied to the grant. So I know there's funding coming in, but again, like I'm 33, I have a good job and my artists are in their mid 20s and I'm sorting their stuff out. So I front a lot of that stuff as we need to. But then I also have a bit of control over it then too, because I know that like if I wait till everybody can book the flights, there'll be extra $200 for everybody. So it's like, if I can take care of it now, I know it's cheaper for myself and kind of all that figured out. And the way we've done it too, if there's a professional development piece involved, like when we went to LA, it was good for me to be there as well too, because I went off and kind of networked all my artists for the studios and shooting. So there was a value to me as well too, and I couldn't expect both my artists to pay for it. So we ended up paying, I take a 20% commission. So I paid 20% of the Airbnb. I just like chipped that in there. We kind of divided and conquered, but it's all a very open conversation. Like you have to be talking finances with your folks, like very open and honest. And we have lots of talks where it's like, listen, I'm absolutely as poor as I've ever been, and I will be poor for the foreseeable future. So we go, okay, can figure that out from now. But if you're not having those conversations, money check gets real weird. Yeah, especially when they don't have any money. Now they're getting the sixth beer of that night and the triple cheeseburgers when you just drove them down from Edmonton and you know they don't have a penny to their name and you've offered to pay for the dinner and now they're getting the extras and the appetizers. So definitely have the conversation.
Yeah, you're definitely talking about money more than I ever have, and now I feel like I'll tell anybody about it because I'm like, we just have to have these conversations like very openly. You have one more question in the back. We're good? Did you want to ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
That's
Definitely.
Yeah, totally.
That is a lot. I feel like all of us should know at least how to do that and be able to bring admin to the table so that we can take care of submissions and applications and paperwork and like I have all of my clients ever signatures still. Like, like sign off for things, take care of whatever needs to be done. Definitely. It is.
I was submitting an invoice the other day for myself to a company, and I was like, why do I have everybody else's direct deposit form except mine saved? Yeah. So it's a lot of, definitely steering that
Invoicing
admin
for
ship.
you if you don't have a business manager.
Yeah.
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
You see the value. Yeah, for sure.